Hey guys, this is Terrell here, and this is my Boomkin guide for balanced DPS in 6.2. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is stats and your stat priority. So the first stat that you want to prioritize really getting is lots of mastery, because as you can see here, mastery increases the damage you get from your Eclipse swinging from side to side. The Boomkin's next best stat is crit. It just increases the damage of your spells, means you hit more, and also gives you a chance of getting more Star Surge procs from your enhanced Star Surge, which procs from crits from your Moonfire or Starfire, or Sunfire rather. The next stat you want to prioritize is Multi-Strike. It just means you do more damage. It's just a flat damage buff. Then you want Haste for the faster ticks of your dots, and then finally Versatility, but you really don't want Versatility. It's a pretty useless stat. So that's the stat order for the balanced Druid. Now on to what all the abilities do. Now the first major ability that you'll want to really look at is your Moonfire. What that will do is it will do a small amount of initial damage, and then it will do a damage over time. There is one final spell to look at, and that is Star Surge. Now Star Surge is an instant cast that does the most damage out of all of your abilities. And what it will do is it will fire a bluey thing at your target and give you a buff called Solar Empowerment if you are in your Solar Eclipse, or Lunar Empowerment if you're in your Lunar Eclipse. And what these buffs do is they will make your next 2 Lunar spells or 3 Solar spells, i.e. your next 2 Starfires or your next 3 Wraths, do more damage. They will do 30% more damage. So that will be on top of the damage that you're already getting from the Eclipse. So with Lunar Empowerment, you can see that a fully charged Sunfire will do 48,000 damage. Whereas if I was to get rid of the buff and then wait for it to go back into Solar, this is it without any Eclipse at all, it does 17,000 damage, so you can see the massive triple buff right there. Now if you go into Lunar Eclipse and you cast it, it increases it from there, and then I multi-strike twice. But you can see that it will increase the damage by a large amount, by 30% exactly. So there is one other damaging ability that you can use in your cooldown, and that is Starfall. What Starfall will do is give you a buff for 10 seconds that will damage all enemies within 40 yards, I believe. Yes, 40 yards with stars falling down from your head, from their heads. So you can see right here the stars are falling on them, and it will just hit them. This is on a charge with Star Surge. Both of them share 3 stacks. So, and they take 30 seconds to recharge a stack. So say we have 3 stacks right at the beginning of a fight, as we do, and we use one on Starfire like this. Both will now go on cooldown, and then you can use another stack, and then another stack. Now the way you get these back is you either wait for them, or you use the Empowered Starfall proc from your crit. So as you can see right here, I just got the buff, and it's called Shooting Stars. And what it will do is it will mean that your Star Surge becomes free in an instant, and you get a little swirly thing around your character. The next thing I'm going to talk about is cooldowns. Now with a balanced Druid, there are certain masteries you should take. The optimal mastery setup, at least for the damage, is the tier 4 and the tier 7. Those are the 2 major choices that you will have to decide. And the current best DPS pair for these 2 talents is Incarnation Chosen of Balloon, which gives you a 3-minute cooldown, and Euphoria, which is a passive. Now, the 2 cooldowns that we're going to be working with are based on those stats. So the first is Incarnation Chosen of Balloon. It will give you 30 seconds of being this badass enhanced Moonkin form that should already be Moonkin form, but whatever. And you get a 15% damage increased from it. So you have a 15% damage buff every 3 minutes for 30 seconds. So it just means that you will do more damage. It's just a flat damage buff. There's not much more to say about this. The next buff I'm going to talk about is Celestial Alignment. you will enter Celestial Alignment, and this buff is not on the global cooldown, and it lasts 15 seconds, and it will mean that you will essentially have both peaks at the same time. So it doesn't matter where you are in your cycle, you press Celestial Alignment, you can cast both for full damage. So it will hit, plus it also gives more damage, but you can see right here that both Wrath and Starfall are hitting, Starfire are hitting for very large amounts of damage. Now the reason I'm healing, as you can see, is because I also have it macroed up to my tier 6 talent, which is Nature's Vigil, which just is a 1.5 minute cooldown. That means that I heal when I do damage. So that's the abilities that you'll want to be using as Druid for damage. Now you have a few utility abilities. You have most of them in talents. You have Displace Beast as your first talent, which is a blink. It turns you into cat form on a 30-second cooldown. Now, what this ability will do is allow you to essentially bypass a lot of mechanics in the game. A good example of this is if you were doing Imperator. I know it's quite old now, but if you were doing Imperator, you could jump over the rings that he spawned, or if you're doing a newer fight, say Handscar and Franzok, you could jump away from a Stamper if you were about to be pushed by one. It will also, if you use it, give you a movement speed buff. A 50% move speed buff whilst in cat form for 5 seconds. Now, for your level 30 talents, or tier 2 talents, scenario mode, don't take it. You either have Renewal, which is self heal for 30%, or Ysera's Gift, which is a 4% every 5 seconds. I take Ysera's Gift because it allows me to help out the raid and heal other people even if I'm full health, and it's constantly being used, and I also don't have to worry about it. So it's a nice, easy buff to handle compared to Renewal. At level 45, you have Fairy Swarm, Mass Entanglement, Typhoon, personal choice, whatever the fight is. Your tier 5s, again, this is all CC, mainly for PvP, but whatever your choice is, Soul's Vortex. Again, these are all personal preference, but they will help you out with movement or controlling ads or CC. And the other two I have already talked about. Now, there is an argument for Heart of the Wild, however, which will allow you to pop it and become a dedicated healer for a short time. I believe it's 40 seconds. So you could, say, pop Heart of the Wild and give everybody rejuve, for example, or start healing touching people. Now the problem with this is you can't do damage whilst doing it, which is why I take Nature's Vigil. It is just you don't do damage, the boss doesn't start dying. So it's less useful than it initially sounds. That you can also start tanking with it. You can go into bear form and become a little tank, but you're not a very good tank, and you will still die very quickly. Now that's it for talents. Now for glyphs. There are very few, in fact there are no damage increasing glyphs for Druid. So all the glyphs you take will be utility. Now glyphs that I would recommend a lot, I would say are mandatory for being a raiding Druid, are Glyph of Stampeding Roar and Glyph of Rebirth. Rebirth just makes you the dedicated combat reser. You have Rebirth, which is an instant cast, and it makes people come back to life at 100% health. It just allows you to heal people when you wouldn't. It allows you to keep people safe, like they've just been res, they don't have all their buffs, they don't have stamina, they don't have stats. So it allows them to not get one-shotted the second they get up at 40% health with, say, another res. And the Glyph of Stampeding Roar is very important because it gives you a 2-minute cooldown, which allows you to be used in any form, and what it will do is it will mean that you increase the movement speed by 60% of all the people within 40 yards of you. 30 yards of you, rather. So all the people within a range of you will get move speed, which is very useful for, say, Operator Thogar, Very useful for any fight where you have to move at all. Even if you're just like bloodlusting on a pull or heroing on a pull and you just want to get your range into position as fast as possible, you've just got to keep thinking of places where you can use this, because there are some fights where you don't move a lot and you just making movement even less will just mean that all of the damage will be higher and you can just really help out your raid. Now aside from that, there are very few talents, glyphs rather, that are useful at all. Bark skin can be used, but the problem is you don't get crit, ever. You just get straight damage. Like, you're not tanking things, so it doesn't help. The Glyph of Celestial Alignment could possibly be useful if you were in, say, PvP or doing something with very bad gear, say you were doing challenge modes, and you don't have any haste. It might get you more spells out. But generally, it won't get you more spells out, because the spells with the Glyph of Celestial Alignment count towards your Star Surges, your Starfalls, your Moonfires, your Wraths, your Starfires, so it doesn't count. The glyph that I have is the Glyph of Dash. It just means that I have a 2-minute cooldown on my dash instead of a 3, which just means that I can run faster for longer periods of time. The mining glyphs, they don't really matter. There is only one that can be useful in a boss, and that is the Glyph of Flap. Now you might be wondering, how is Flap useful? If you are on the final boss of Blackrock Foundry, if you are killing Blackhand, and you want to help out your range, you can, as you're falling down from phase 1 to phase 2, flap onto the balcony. You've got to time it correctly, but you will essentially have a slow fall. And you can flap onto the balcony and start starfalling people down, and then start moon firing and sun firing all over the mobs. And you'll kill them pretty quickly. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the rotation. So the rotation for Boomkin is if you're starting off a boss, and there isn't much of a difference for if you're doing a Bloodlust pull or a not Bloodlust pull. You still ideally want to pop all of your cooldowns at the beginning, unless there is something in the fight that is within 1 or 2 minutes of the start of the fight that needs to die quickly. I can't think of very many examples where you need to save and pop your cooldowns on point, but an example that you could use is, say, saving your cooldowns during Heart of the Furnace, or Blast Furnace, or whatever you want to call it. Heart of the Mountain, sorry. Blast Furnace, yeah. So the way that you'll start off your pull is you will pop your Intellect Potion and your Chosen of a Loon, so your Incarnation and your Chosen of a Loon. I'm not going to actually pop a potion, but I'm going to pop this, and then you will start casting a Starfire, so that the Starfire will hit the second your timer hits 0. After that, you want to hit a Star Surge, and then use Celestial Alignment. Now what this will allow you to do is then cast Moonfire and apply both Moonfire and Sunfire to the target, as you can see there. Then, after you've done this, you'll want to Starfire twice to use the 2 Star Surge procs that you've used, then do it again, and Star Surge twice again, and then do it again and Star Surge twice again, and then hopefully do it again if a Shooting Stars is proc, and if not, just keep using Starfire. And you'll keep wanting to use Starfire until the second you hit Solar Eclipse. And when you hit Solar Eclipse, you'll want to Sunfire again, and then start spamming Wrath. And whenever you can, use a Star Surge, provided that you're not destroying your own Solar Empowerment procs, because that is probably one of the biggest losses to DPS that you can possibly do. So some DPS tips that I can give are, if you have 3 or more targets, use Starfall as well as Star Surge. Now this is because you will do more damage with the 1 Starfall than the Star Surge plus the 2 procs, or the 3 procs, depending on what Eclipse you're in. Now that is important because it will just give you a DPS increase. However, because it takes 10 seconds for Starfall to activate, you still have to use your Star Surges, which means that you'll need to incorporate both of them in together and use Shooting Star procs to maximize your damage, and make sure that you're tracking them. Another tip that I can give you for damage is that if you have an add-on, such as Tell Me When, for example, which is what this big box right here is, you can use that add-on to track your clips. Now, I do have a handy bar with my LUI right here that shows me where in my eclipse I am, but I also have this right here. And this button right here, I'm going to show you my Tell Me When. This button right here shows me my Moonfire. Now, in your spellbook, you have both Sun and Moonfire. However, there is no point having Sunfire on your bar. It is a useless spell on your bar. Because what will happen is Moonfire will turn into Sunfire when you're in Lunar Eclipse. For example, I will go and attack. I'll start off in Lunar Eclipse. It will go through Lunar Eclipse, as you can see down here, or up here, they're both the same. And it will cycle through Lunar Eclipse, making sure I'm in combat. And then the second I hit Solar Eclipse, you can see that both change. It's now in Solar Eclipse. So this just frees up some of your action bars, allows you to have more space on your action bars, and allow you to operate there. Okay, so now I'm going to give you an actual example of a full speed rotation. Now, there might be a bit of spamming, and I apologize for that, but this is just how you would open up a pool. So you start off like this, and then as the timer would hit 0, which is now, you start your rotation. You hit your Celestial Alignment, you hit your Moonfire, which applies both of your buffs, and you start spamming Starfire. Now you can see I have a Shooting Stars proc right here, so I get another Star Surge, which I will then use. And as you can see here, I'm tracking the buffs with my Tell Me When. And if you want, I can make a guide for that. Now I'm going to keep going with my Starfires, and you can see that right here, my Sunfire is almost running out. But just as you get into the Eclipse, you get to reapply it. So there is no point using a second Moonfire whilst with Celestial Alignment. It's best to get the extra spell off. Now as you can see, I'm wrathing right up until the end, and then right as I hit Lunar Empowerment, oh I just missed it, but right as you're meant to hit Lunar Empowerment, which is the Lunar Peak buff, you get, you just deal bonus damage for the initial damage that you deal. But here is the DPS you do, and then you just keep rotating like this. It's a fairly simple rotation to know once you have your priorities down. And you just keep managing your procs and tracking when you go between the forms. And right here I'm pulling 35k unbuffed, which is not too shabby. I am in eye level 700 gear, but oh well. So that is how you do damage as a Boomkin. Some more things you should note. Hurricane, it's not really useful for AoE and multi-target. What you want to do is just dot up as much as you feel necessary and then just single target one of the things down, you'll pull like 150k damage. Other things you should know, Soothe is a very important ability, especially for things like Beast Lord, and for, say, the mobs outside of Gruul. You can also soothe them. It just gets rid of Enrage. It's like a trank shot, but free. So if there's hunters doing tranking, tell them not to. It costs them so much energy. Just volunteer for your raid. Just be a good guy. Other stuff, Swap Blaster, very, very important for being a druid. You've got to swap blast people all the time. Shadow Meld gives you a vanish if you're a feral druid, but we're not. And that's basically all the druidy stuff. Yeah, so this was a balanced druid guide. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new, even if you already had a druid and you just wanted to check it out. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.